My boyfriend went to a resort with my younger sister on my birthday and cheated on me. I met Amelia in what I can only describe as the most bizarrely charming way possible. You know how in movies there's always that moment where the universe seems to just push two people together in the weirdest possible situation? That was us. We got locked in the archival vault of this dusty old bookstore on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The lock was broken, no cell signal, and the store guy had just gone out for coffee. I remember looking around and seeing nothing but old hardcover novels stacked to the ceiling, and then glancing over at her, sitting cross-legged by a stack of Victorian literature, munching on a candy bar like she owned the place. I cracked a joke about being trapped with a stranger who had access to snacks and asked if she planned on rationing it. She laughed, broke the bar in half, and said we'd have to make it last 2 hours. So we sat there, strangers with no distractions except the smell of aging paper and the occasional creak of the building settling, talking about everything from weird habits as kids to our favorite authors. I told her I used to steal my dad's Stephen King books and hide them under my bed. She admitted she used to write pretend letters to Sherlock Holmes. Somewhere between her description of what made Wuthering Heights overrated and her impression of her high school English teacher, I knew I wanted her number. I got it too. A week later, we had coffee at a local place in Burlington. 2 months later, we were inseparable. That bookstore story became our thing. Whenever anyone asked how we met, we'd glance at each other, laugh, and tell them the vault story. Logan, me, used to joke that it was the happiest lock-in of my life. Fast forward a few years, and we were standing in the snow outside this little 2-bedroom house in Vermont. It had this crooked mailbox and a wraparound porch that looked like it belonged in a Norman Rockwell painting. The moment Amelia saw it, she clutched my arm and whispered, "This is it." I didn't see it at first. It needed work, the plumbing was ancient, and the roof looked like it might collapse if it snowed too hard. But her eyes were shining, and that was enough for me. We bought it. We painted the front door red because Amelia said red doors bring good luck. I spent 2 weekends replacing all the floorboards in the living room while she tried to figure out how to wallpaper the bedroom without losing her mind. It was a mess, honestly. We argued over grout colors, cursed at IKEA instructions, and celebrated every successful home repair with takeout and a bottle of cheap wine. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. 3 years of marriage. 5 years together. Most mornings, I'd find her curled up on the couch reading with a blanket that somehow always ended up dragging across the floor. She always made too much tea and forgot to drink half of it. I'd get back from work and find half-burnt candles in the kitchen, as if she kept forgetting to blow them out. Sundays were for grocery runs, watching movies under a mountain of pillows, and walking in the woods behind our house when the weather allowed it. We didn't have a dramatic life. No huge vacations or lavish parties. Just a quiet rhythm of shared routines. Sometimes that rhythm was boring, sure. There were nights where we didn't talk much, just scrolled on our phones in the same room. There were weeks where work drained us, and we passed each other like ghosts. But even in those moments, it felt stable. Like no matter what, I had a teammate. Someone who'd share a candy bar with me in a locked room and not freak out. Our friends always said we were that couple. The ones who didn't fight at parties, who brought matching casseroles to potlucks, who finished each other's stories without sounding annoying. I didn't think too hard about it at the time. I was just happy, or I thought I was. But that's where I'll leave it for now. I remember folding Logan's clothes on the bed, feeling a little disappointed, but trying not to show it. He sat beside me, stuffing socks into the corners of his duffel bag and mumbling something about the CEO being a big believer in off-site bonding. It sounded like a load of corporate nonsense, but he looked genuinely frustrated about it. Kept saying how it wasn't his call and how he'd rather be with me than doing trust falls in the Rockies. I told him I understood, and I meant it mostly. Work was work, and it wasn't like we hadn't spent time apart before. Still, it stung. My 30th birthday was kind of a big deal to me, even if I hadn't admitted it out loud. He kissed me on the forehead before he left and promised we'd do something amazing when he got back. I stood on the porch waving as he pulled out of the driveway, and I told myself not to take it personally. People miss birthdays. It happens. Besides, he'd been so thoughtful every year. One time he even got our friends to fly in from 3 different cities just to surprise me. Another time, he arranged a full weekend in the Catskills, complete with wine tasting and a hot air balloon ride that terrified me, but made for amazing pictures. I had no reason to doubt him. Not then. After he left, the house felt unusually quiet. Logan always had some background noise going. Music from his phone, a podcast in the kitchen, humming tunelessly while he made coffee. I tried to fill the silence by busying myself with work and catching up on errands, but I felt a kind of loneliness I hadn't experienced in a long time. I didn't say anything to anyone about it. When my coworker asked what we were doing for my birthday this year, I just smiled and said we'd celebrate once he was back. It wasn't a lie. Not yet. The day of my birthday came, and I woke up to a video message from him. He was standing outside what looked like a conference center, wearing a fleece jacket with the company's logo, grinning into the camera as he wished me a happy birthday. He said all the right things, even saying the first line of "Happy Birthday" before laughing and saying he didn't want to scare anyone with his singing voice. It was sweet. A little impersonal, maybe, but I told myself it was better than nothing. He even had a bouquet delivered to the house that afternoon. Sunflowers and lilies, my favorites, with a card that said, "Counting the days until I get to see you." It should have made me happy. It did, for a moment. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and watched a movie alone. I thought about texting him, but figured he was probably doing some evening seminar or stuck in a group dinner. I tried not to feel bitter. I tried not to compare this birthday to the others. I kept telling myself that we'd make up for it, that he'd come back with some ridiculous plan that would sweep me off my feet. But something about the whole thing didn't sit right. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't anything he said or did exactly, just this subtle shift in how it all felt. I went to bed early that night, my phone on the charger beside me, hoping for another message or maybe even a late call, but it stayed silent. I spent my 30th birthday alone in our house, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a pad thai that arrived lukewarm in a paper bag soaked through with sauce. The show I picked wasn't even that good, something mindless and bright that didn't require me to think too hard. I tried to stay upbeat, telling myself that people had worse birthdays and that it was just a number anyway. I FaceTimed my parents in the evening, and my mom immediately asked, "Where's Logan?" with that knowing tone that said she already had thoughts she wasn't going to say out loud. I explained that he was on a work retreat and couldn't get out of it, and she raised her eyebrows for a second, then nodded and smiled politely, but I could see she was surprised. She didn't push it, just said maybe we'd do something together when he was back. I laughed, nodded along, but I could feel something heavy settle in my chest when I ended the call. I wasn't sad, not exactly, just hollow. The next day, Logan came home in the afternoon. I was doing laundry when I heard the front door open and his voice calling out from the hallway. He sounded cheerful, the way he always did when he came home from a trip, and he dropped his duffel bag by the door like it was any other day. He looked a little tired, the kind of tired that comes from too many hotel breakfasts and forced conversations with coworkers, but he also looked pleased with himself, like he'd had a good time. He handed me a small gift bag with a box of chocolates and a bottle of red wine, telling me it was from the conference, though I couldn't imagine when they'd had time for wine shopping during all those alleged team-building activities. He kissed my cheek and asked me how my birthday went, and I said it was fine, that I'd ordered food and talked to my parents. He winced a little, like he felt guilty, then said again that we'd do something soon, something better, that he hated missing it, and didn't want me to think he didn't care. I believed him. Of course I did. He had that apologetic, boyish look on his face that always disarmed me. I didn't press for details about the retreat. I didn't ask who else had gone or what they'd done. I just let it be. I poured us both a glass of the wine, and we sat on the couch like nothing was off. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't notice anything then. I didn't feel suspicious. I didn't feel lied to. I just felt relieved that he was back. It was the kind of text that doesn't hit you right away, just sits on your screen looking harmless until your brain finally catches up with your eyes. "Can you call me back when you're alone?" I read it 3 times, trying to remember who Jenna even was. We'd met at a birthday party years ago, maybe 2 conversations since then, the kind of person whose name you recognize, but whose face you have to search your memory for. Still, something about the timing made me pause. I was alone. Logan had gone out to run errands, or so he said. I stared at the screen for another minute before calling. She picked up on the first ring, but didn't say anything. The silence stretched until I started to ask if everything was okay, and that's when she spoke. Her voice was soft, hesitant, like she wasn't sure she should be saying what she was about to say. "I didn't want to pry," she began, and immediately my stomach tightened. She went on, "But I saw your sister, with Logan, on an Instagram video." I stopped breathing. I didn't even know what to say yet, just listened as she explained, carefully, slowly, that she had recognized them both in a short clip someone else had posted. A poolside video from what looked like a resort, taken just a few days ago. "I wasn't sure it was them at first," Jenna said. "But then I took a screenshot. I'm going to send it to you." My phone buzzed less than 10 seconds later, and there it was. A single frame, bright and clear and absolutely unmistakable. Logan, my husband, was reclining on a lounge chair in swim trunks, sunglasses pushed up into his hair, one arm wrapped around Brooke, my younger sister, who was sitting in front of him in a bikini. He had both hands on her shoulders, massaging her like they'd done this 1,000 times. She was laughing, head tilted back against his chest, eyes closed, like she didn't have a care in the world. He was smiling at her like I hadn't seen him smile at me in months. My first thought wasn't anger. It was confusion. For a few seconds, I stared at the image and convinced myself there had to be another explanation, some missing context, some harmless reason for what I was looking at. But there wasn't. The video was 12 seconds long. I watched it in full after Jenna forwarded it. They didn't look like two people who'd bumped into each other or who were talking casually at a retreat. They looked like they were on vacation together. They looked like a couple. And more than anything else, they looked completely unbothered. It was my birthday, and while I sat at home alone ordering food and trying not to feel forgotten, they were lounging by a pool somewhere, wrapped up in each other and not hiding it from anyone. Not even the camera. I don't even know what made me do it first, whether it was instinct or denial. But after I hung up with Jenna and stared at that frozen image of Logan and Brooke by the pool, I opened my laptop and logged into our bank account. My hands were shaking, but part of me already knew I was going to find something. Something had cracked open, and the truth was leaking in whether I was ready or not. The transaction list loaded slowly, like it was teasing me, and there it was. One withdrawal, the day before his supposed work retreat, for $1,400 from our joint account. No explanation, no note, just gone. I stared at the number, willing it to be something else, a glitch, a delayed charge, anything. But it wasn't. Then it hit me. The money my grandmother sent me every year for my birthday. $1,000, always in a card, tucked carefully between two thick pages so it wouldn't be obvious. I hadn't deposited it yet. I had slipped the envelope into my wallet earlier that week, thinking I'd run it to the bank after the weekend. It was gone. I tore the house apart, dumping out drawers, opening every bag, every coat pocket, even the laundry basket, as if the envelope had just walked away. But I knew it hadn't. I remembered now. Logan had run out to grab coffee that morning before he left, and my wallet had been sitting on the console table near the door. He didn't just lie. He took my birthday gift before disappearing with my sister. I sat there in the kitchen, my wallet still open in my lap, the emptiness of it almost absurd. I don't know how I managed to dial the number, but I called the resort. I made up a story about needing a receipt for expense reimbursement. I kept my voice light, almost bored, like I was just another customer following up. The receptionist was polite and efficient, clicked around her computer for a few moments, and then said yes. She had the record. The room had been reserved under Logan's name. A couple spa package. 3 nights. The charge? $1,000 in cash and another $200 on our card. She even offered to email me the receipt. I told her I'd get back to her, then hung up and just sat there, staring at the counter, trying to understand how someone could do something like that and come home smiling, tired from fake meetings, handing me wine as if he hadn't just taken my money and spent it on my sister. That wasn't just a lie. That was theft. That was betrayal in a shape I didn't even have words for yet. He didn't forget my birthday. He used it. He stole the gift meant for me and turned it into a vacation for the two of them, and then walked back into our home and kissed me like nothing had happened. When Logan came home from work that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my phone in front of me, the screen dark but ready. He walked in like everything was normal, tossed his keys into the bowl by the door, and started talking about how traffic was terrible and how he might need to travel again next month. I didn't say anything right away. I just waited until he stepped into the kitchen and looked at me. Then I tapped the screen and held it up. He saw the video instantly. It was only 12 seconds, but his face changed in less than 3. He blinked once, twice, like he was trying to process it faster than I could respond. Then he let out this short, dry laugh and said, "It's not what it looks like." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I waited. He looked down, rubbed his face with one hand, and said, "Brooke's been going through a hard time, all right? She's been struggling. I was just trying to be there for her." I didn't say anything. I just reached across the table, picked up the phone again, and opened the hotel booking confirmation. His name, the dates, the payment breakdown, everything was there in black and white. I turned it toward him and asked, very clearly, "Where did the cash come from, Logan?" He froze, just stood there like his mouth forgot how to move. He didn't ask how I got it. He didn't deny it. He just stared at the screen, his eyes dull, his posture collapsing just a little. Then, something shifted in him. His face hardened. He shrugged, looked straight at me, and said, "You never deserved gifts." The words hung there for a second, not fully real yet. But then he added, with a smirk that made my stomach turn, "At least Brooke knows how to satisfy a man." It didn't feel like a slap. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Everything that had confused me, everything I had doubted, it all made sense in that moment. Not just the affair, not just the theft, but the contempt. The casual cruelty in his voice wasn't born yesterday. It had been sitting there all along, waiting for a moment like this to show its real face. After he said it, after those words left his mouth like he had been waiting for the chance to finally spit them out, he just walked out of the room without another glance at me. I heard him in the hallway, low voice on the phone, pacing back and forth with short, clipped phrases that I couldn't make out completely, but I knew. I knew it was her. I knew it was Brooke. There was something about the way his voice dropped and then rose again, about the way he said, "I handled it," like this was just another item on his to-do list. He didn't speak to me again that night. Over the next few days, he turned into something else entirely. One morning he screamed at me, slammed the bedroom door so hard the frame cracked, accused me of spying, of being cold, of being a bitter woman who made this house a prison. The same afternoon, I found him in the living room with tears in his eyes, begging me to sit down and talk, telling me he had made a mistake, that Brooke meant nothing, that I was everything. By that evening, he was stone-faced and sulking, walking around the house like he was the one who'd been betrayed. It was like he didn't know who he wanted to be, so he tried all of them: aggressor, victim, repentant, child. I didn't say much during those days. I couldn't. My voice didn't trust itself, and I knew anything I said would be wasted on him. Instead, I collected everything. I took screenshots of the Instagram video, the text Jenna had sent, our entire message thread. I printed out the bank statements and highlighted the withdrawal. I saved the email confirmation from the spa and the call log from my phone showing when I contacted the hotel. I made a folder with every piece of it, a paper trail of his lies and my unraveling. I hadn't told my parents yet. I couldn't. Every time I picked up the phone, something in me froze. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to explain that the person they had trusted, the man who sat across from them at holiday dinners, who helped my dad shovel the driveway, and called my mom ma'am, the first time he met her, had used my birthday money to book a romantic weekend with my sister. I couldn't picture the look on their faces. I didn't want to see their hearts break the way mine had. Every time I thought about that envelope, about how I had touched it just days before, how I had smiled when I opened my grandmother's card, how I had planned to buy myself something small but special, I felt my hands start to tremble. That money was supposed to be a gift for me, a moment of joy in a quiet year, a piece of love passed down from someone who always remembered. And he took it. He took it without hesitation and gave it to someone else, someone who should have been sitting beside me with cake and wine, not lying by his side under resort sun. 2 weeks after everything came out, Logan shifted tactics like it was part of some rehearsed routine. The doorbell started ringing every other day, roses in long white boxes, sometimes red, sometimes pink, always accompanied by a neatly written card that said things like, "I still believe in us," or "Please let me fix this." Chocolate appeared in the kitchen without explanation, the expensive kind he used to buy for anniversaries. One night, he sat across from me at the table and said we should go to therapy, that we owed it to ourselves, that even broken things can be repaired if both people are willing. I didn't answer. I didn't argue. I just stared at him until he stopped talking. When I didn't melt, when I didn't soften or even show the smallest flicker of interest, he turned cold. The next morning, the roses stopped. The chocolates disappeared. Instead, I got slammed doors, sighs loud enough to be a performance, and comments muttered just loud enough to be heard. Like, "Some people are addicted to drama," or "You don't even want to be happy." I said nothing. Silence was the only language he couldn't twist. One Thursday, I left work early. I hadn't planned to, just couldn't take the fake smiles and shallow small talk any longer. I wanted my couch, a blanket, the stillness of my own space. When I walked into the house, the air was quiet except for Logan's voice coming from the living room. I stopped before turning the corner. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I just heard him, clear as day, calm and rehearsed, saying, "I'll take care of it. Just give her a little more time. Once she's calmed down, we'll file for divorce peacefully." His tone was so measured, so businesslike, like I was some contract he just needed to renegotiate. I stepped into the kitchen without a word, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and walked right past him. He turned, phone still in hand, lips parted like he might say something, but he didn't. He didn't follow. He didn't call after me. He just stood there in silence, caught mid-sentence, like even he knew there was nothing left to explain. The day after I heard him on the phone with Brooke, I called my cousin Jason. He had mentioned a while back that he owned a small apartment across town, one he was slowly renovating but hadn't moved anyone into yet. I hadn't spoken to him in months outside of the occasional birthday message, but when he picked up and I asked if I could stay there for a little while, there was no hesitation. "Keys are yours," he said, just like that. "I'll leave them in the lockbox by the door." That same afternoon, I started moving quietly. I didn't tell Logan. I waited until he left for work and began with the essentials: my passport, birth certificate, laptop, chargers, anything that couldn't be replaced. I wrapped up old journals and slipped them into a backpack. I took down the framed photos from the shelves, the ones he never noticed I rotated every few months, and put them in a tote bag under the sink. Every time I heard a car door outside, my heart jumped, but it was never him. I worked quickly, methodically, never staying longer than I needed to. The next day, I packed a suitcase with enough clothes to last me a couple of weeks and tucked it in the trunk of my car. I cleared out my desk drawer, took the books I cared about most, and copied all of our shared financial documents onto a USB drive. At lunch, I went to a completely different bank, one we'd never used together, and opened a new account in just my name. I didn't move everything yet, but I needed it there, ready, like a lifeboat floating beside a sinking ship. I didn't cry while I packed. I didn't yell or slam anything. There was no dramatic goodbye, no confrontation, no final speech. I just kept going, one drawer, one bag, one step at a time, until pieces of my life had been scattered safely elsewhere, far from the man who had hollowed out our home and left me sitting inside the shell of it. I was at home the day the package arrived. The courier rang the bell, handed me a small, heavy box with Logan's name on it, and asked for a signature. I knew immediately it wasn't mine. Nothing about the packaging suggested a gift or surprise. It had that unmistakable look of something expensive and unnecessary. I waited until the door closed behind the delivery guy before I set the box on the kitchen table and opened it. Inside was a designer watch, gleaming and absurd in its arrogance, with a receipt tucked carefully beneath the foam insert. The total was $2,500, withdrawn from our shared account, and the only note under the transaction history was image boost for client meetings. I stared at it for a long time, not even angry at that point, just stunned by how little he thought of me, how far past the point of shame he had moved. While I was peeling my life out of our house piece by piece, he was still playing the part of a successful man with nothing to hide, spending thousands like the money belonged to him alone. I photographed everything, the receipt, the packaging, the watch itself. Then I drove to the boutique listed on the invoice, a quiet upscale place with marble floors and lighting that made every object look more expensive than it already was. I told the clerk I needed to return a recent purchase, showed the receipt, and said it was unused. She barely asked a question. 5 minutes later, the refund was processed, and I made sure to log into our banking app the moment I got back to the car to verify it had gone through. Once I saw the credit appear, I didn't hesitate. I transferred half of it, $2.50, straight into my new account. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. A quiet, necessary correction in a situation where nothing else made sense. He spent what he wanted, without asking, without considering what he had already taken from me. So I took something back, not out of spite, but because I had to. When Logan finally left town for what was, as far as I could tell, an actual work trip this time, I knew it was my window to finish everything. I took the day off and went back to the house with a quiet purpose. There was no more panic, no racing heart or trembling hands. Just a sharp, focused calm. I cleaned every surface, not out of kindness, but because I wanted the place to feel hollow when he walked back in. I wanted it to be obvious that something was gone, not just furniture or books, but something heavier, something final. I walked from room to room, making sure I had left nothing behind that mattered. The drawers were empty except for the pieces of his life. The photos were gone from the shelves. My clothes, my scent, my voice. It was like I had never existed there at all. On the kitchen table, I placed 3 things: the house key, my wedding ring, and an envelope. Inside the envelope were the divorce papers. All filled out, everything ready, just waiting for his signature. I had even included a pen. On top of the envelope, I left a note. Not long, not angry, just one last sentence written in my handwriting he used to say he loved. "You were right," I wrote. "I don't know how to keep a man. But apparently, neither does your new professional." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. I stepped out of that house without looking back. I locked the door behind me one last time, slid the key under the mat, and walked away. And I never went back. Now I live in a small studio that I chose myself, with light that pours in through the east-facing window every morning and a lock that only I have a key to. It's not much, just one room with a kitchen tucked into the corner and a bed I made up with new sheets that don't carry any memories. But it's mine, and that's all I've needed. I opened a new set of social media accounts, this time with every setting locked down, visible only to the people I actually want in my life. No more audience. No more curated illusion of a happy couple smiling in pictures that were already falling apart behind the frame. I started cooking, really cooking, not just heating up takeout or following quick recipes from apps. I learned how to make pasta from scratch, how to roast vegetables properly, how to make soup that doesn't come from a can. It started as a distraction, something to fill the silence. Now it feels like something permanent, something real. In a few months, I'll be flying to Hawaii for my 31st birthday, a trip I planned myself, paid for with money I earned, and no one's coming along to ruin it. Brooke lost most of her friends after everything came out. People talk, and it didn't take long before the quiet invitations stopped and the supportive messages dried up. Last I heard, she's living in our aunt's apartment, and from what I gather, it's not going well. We haven't spoken, and I don't plan to. There's nothing left to say. My parents, once they knew everything, stood behind me without question. My mom cried when I told her. My dad said only one sentence. We're with you. That was enough. Logan, of course, took to Instagram like it was a confessional booth. He posts quotes now, long, vague captions about clarity and rebuilding and lessons learned. I don't read them anymore. A friend sent me one a while back, and I felt nothing. No anger. No bitterness. Just an absence. An echo of something I once believed in, now gone. There are still quiet moments where the weight of it all sits in my chest, not as pain anymore, but as residue. But I came out of it stronger. Not hardened, not closed off, just clearer, more awake, and most of all, free.